Hello and welcome to the Car Talk podcast. This is our very first podcast, and this is a show where we talk about the new upcoming car news and other transportation. I'm Bayley, your host from the Grand Teen, and I'm joined by Matty from Matty Cars. How are you doing, Matty?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, Bayley. I don't even know what I'm doing here, to be honest. If you don't know, listeners, you won't know because I've never been involved in the Grand Team, and I'm not even a teenager. I'm 21, but here we are. I've got the gig. How are you doing, Bayley?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. And we're going to talk about cars, really, aren't we, this time?
Yeah, that's the aim. Yeah.
I think obviously because this is a new podcast that we've started. I think it's a good opportunity to introduce ourselves and talk about what we like and what cars we like. So do you want to go ahead and start, Matty?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose I'd start from what I drive, which is 2002 Citroen Saxo. Not even a fast one. It's a 1.1. But in terms of favourite cars, it depends really where you want to go. If you want to go down the modern route or the old route, because I'm a sucker for old small cars.
I agree with you. I'm very much the same. I just prefer old cars. They're so much more desirable and they're so much more full of life and character, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even cars that would have been really rubbish to drive in their day now have a lot more involvement behind the wheel and feel in the steering and handling than new BMWs or Mercedes, but I do like them as well. I've got a few of them written down. But old cars, Vauxhall Nova, definitely a big chav car in the 90s, but
definitely yes,
skyrocketing in value now. Citroen AX, I like all old Citroens, to be honest.
Yeah, I know what you mean. They're very they look rather different compared to a lot of the other cars at the similar time period, and that's what makes them very nice, actually.
They're still a little bit sort of out of the box today, but they're owned by Peugeot now, so miles away from what they were. And I don't know, if I had to buy something, if you forced me to buy something brand new today, it would probably be something like a Suzuki Jimny.
They are nice, actually. I
think they're so cool. Yeah, but I've got a few cars written down here. But what about yourself, Bayley? What are your favourite cars?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, old cars are definitely a big place in my heart, and they sort of just show, proper design and actual handcrafted engines. But I mean, if I had to choose sort of cars from today, Lexus LFA, one of the best sounding cars, it's definitely up there for me. I am a sucker for Lamborghinis because they're just ridiculous. And I actually drive, which is a big contrast to what I've just mentioned, I drive a Seat Ibiza. It's my first car. I'm planning on getting a new car actually, which is a Mazda MX-5, hopefully, because I'm a big fan of those. But yeah, that's sort of my favourite cars, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, most of mine are sort of achievable dreams, but Lamborghinis, brilliant. I mean, it's one of the very few cars that, even though they're sort of owned by Volkswagen and they haven't sort of lost their identity or their style or the hypercar.
No, definitely not.
Hypercar sort of vibe, but I mean, if I was going really sort of lottery win, I like the Aston Martin DB11, but it's still, I don't think it's as nice as the old Astons. But I mean, if a brand new.
I agree with you because, well, obviously, mostly it's German now. Aston Martin are pretty much German. They have a lot of AMG parts in their cars. A lot of the engines, especially the new Vantage, has an AMG 63 engine. And like you said, old Aston Martins, of course, reflect that 007 Bond films and stuff. And they just I think they look a bit better as well.
Yeah, I think they do. But yeah, that's what I have.
Right, so now we're going to talk about the upcoming cars or the latest car news. And this is sort of a big part of the podcast, which is what you're trying to focus on. So the first car I'd like to talk about, Matty, is the new BMW iX, which has obviously been announced quite recently.
Oh, God.
And yeah, it doesn't look at all appealing, I don't think. It's used the same grille as the new M4, which nobody liked, and they were just like, yep, we'll stick it on that car for some reason. But I mean, it's all electric. It's 500 brake horsepower, which is ridiculous in an SUV, and has about a range of 373 miles, which is not too bad. But again, I wouldn't buy it because of the looks.
No, well, it's going up against the Audi e-tron as well, which is, almost as zany, to be fair. And BMW are being very aggressive in their marketing for this. It's had huge backlash on social media, and BMW's reply was this quote, which says, "When it comes to innovative design, it's very common for some to find it unusual and odd. But be open to the new look and let's embrace the future together," which is a lot of marketing jargon in one sentence there. But I mean, how much is this going to cost? It's going to be about what?
It'll
do we
probably
reckon?
be around 70 grand, I reckon. I don't think they've released the price yet. I'm not sure.
It's 70 grand BMW, and do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a SsangYong Rexton. You know them SsangYong
does, yeah.
SUVs, especially from the side profile of it. So no, not a fan of
Not
that
a fan
at all.
no. I'd quite like to talk about the new Fiat Tipo 2021. It's had a facelift. It looks rather good, actually. They do three or four different versions. They got the 1 litre hatchback. They got the Life version, whatever that means, the Estate and the Crossover. So it's quite a big variety there, which can be quite good, but also it can be a bit of a negative point there because obviously they have to kind of cater for everything.
It looks nice, actually. The Fiat Tipo, I mean, it's from 17,690, so it's not too expensive, and it actually looks like a Ford Focus. Which
it does, yeah. It has a resemblance, especially the Mondeo and the Estate version looks like the Mondeo.
And we all know that the Ford Focus looks like the BMW 1 Series, the brand new one. So you could pay £17,690 for a Fiat that looks like a 1 Series.
There we go.
But the badge is very prominent on this new one. It's got a huge big badge on the front, and it, depending on how you look at that, you may not want to be driving around in something that is quite obviously a Fiat. Maybe they've put the big badge on the front so people don't mistake it for a Focus or for a 1 Series, but without doubt it is Fiat when you look at the badge.
Yeah. I'd quite like to move on to the new Vauxhall Corsa. Now, I've actually driven this car. I know you're not a fan of Vauxhalls, Matty, at all. I mean, I'm not as well.
If you didn't know, Bayley's been possessed by the Vauxhall Corsa. He's joined the Corsa Club. You can find him if you want to meet him in the McDonald's car parks, with a milkshake in one hand and a girl in the other hand. Probably going to be 13, but yeah.
Yeah, well, on that note, I have
Try
driven
and convert me.
And I have driven it. I have reviewed it, and there'll be a review coming out sort of next year, early Jan time, on this car. And I had the top spec one, which is actually rather nice. It had like a really nice red trim inside, has about 100 brake horsepower. It's got really nice turbo. It's got a really nice finish on it in the interior. The seats are very nice. It's got Bluetooth. It's got all the things you want. And when you're in it, it doesn't really feel like a Corsa, actually. It feels like, I don't know, an Audi or something a bit more classy than a Vauxhall.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't normally like Vauxhalls, but that is one I like.
No, I do know what you mean. I mean, the Vauxhalls are quite good, actually, to be fair, these days. I drive a lot of them for work, and the turbos are really good as well, as you mentioned.
Yes.
I had a Mocha with a turbo, petrol eco tech or whatever Mocha, and I was like, oh my god, this is really good, and this is a car that is exclusively driven by old people. You know, we don't know what we're missing out on here. It's just got an image problem, I think, Vauxhall.
Yeah,
it has for
it's
years.
The badge, really, isn't it? I mean, just aside the looks of the new Corsa looks really nice. It's proper unique. It's completely redone, but again, the badge just lets it down, I think.
Well, yeah, and it's a weird one, Vauxhall, because although Corsas are hugely popular with young people, my dad mentioned to me a few weeks ago, he's like, Vauxhall, like, they literally in an advert for cars years ago, and I remember this actually, I don't know if you remember it, but they used kids pretending to be old men in the advert.
I don't remember
you're right.
That, no.
It's two kids, little kids, like, you're right, John, yeah, and they're opening the boot of the car, and it's like, I mean, we were both a little bit baffled by Vauxhall's marketing strategies, because they don't give themselves a good image.
No, not at all.
But yeah, the cars aren't too bad.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely getting, they're getting better, and the new course has kind of proved that they are somewhat decent at making cars. It's not exactly the fastest car or the fastest hatchback, but it's definitely a lot of fun to drive, and it's got a sport mode as well. So,
interestingly, actually, this week it's been announced that the very first Mark I Vauxhall Corsa, which I think might have came out in 1993 or something like that, replaced the little Nova that I'm after.
Really?
The Mark I Corsa, the little bubble car, it's actually going into a museum. I don't know which one, but it's
no way.
It's a classic now. It's at risk of extinction, and it's going into a museum. So there you go.
Wow. So the next car I'd like to sort of move on to, and it's not exactly recent news, but it is this year, and I've seen it myself, and it is the new Ferrari Roma. I think it looks beautiful. It's a very nice shape. It's got very questionable back headlights, but I mean, I quite like the retro-inspired style.
Yeah, this is my type of car, to be honest. I like a Grand Tourer. Enough performance to get your pulse racing. 612 bhp, 199 miles an hour, but it's refined and it's classy, and I actually really like the look of it.
I do as well. I mean, the front more so than the back. The back sort of, I'm still deciding whether I like the back or not, but the front, I mean, any day I'd have that.
It's nice.
And it's got the engine. Obviously, you mentioned the brake horsepower. It's got 612 brake horsepower in a. It's got a twin turbocharged DOHC engine, which stands for dual overhead camshaft. The V8, obviously.
Yeah, 8-speed dual clutch gearbox.
Yeah, that's starting to become the norm now, because obviously we've had 7-speed and we've had 6-speed. Next will be, 8-speed.
Yeah, based on the Portofino. I don't think the Portofino was that good, to be honest. I mean, I thought
it was just a revamped California, really.
Yeah, and the California had been around for years and years anyway. So it's time. It was time for a new one. I think it's great, to be honest. I'd have one.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I've caught the coronavirus. Suppose I just slipped that one in there.
Brilliant. I love that.
You can have that one.
So next on the list is the McLaren 765. I can't say it. That's a really hard one to say, because normally it's like the new 720, but they've gone 765 LT. But nevertheless, it looks like the 720. It's obviously had a bit of a change of stats, and it's a bit lighter.
Yeah.
All this malarkey. It's got 755 brake horsepower.
Yeah.
And it's not as quick as the Senna, but it's almost as fast as the Senna, and it's actually a lot cheaper than the Senna. So
it's a track version, isn't it, of the 720S?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
and it's quite impressive, actually. It's got a lot of technology put into it to make it better. A lot of aerodynamics. Here's my favourite one, actually. It's got like little vents in the wheel arches to let air out and prevent lift when you're on the track. I mean,
that is very cool.
very innovative, very good car. What engine is it? Is it four?
It would just be another 4 litre V8. It's the typical engine. I think McLaren, all they do really is they kind of make an engine and then they tune it a little bit to change it, and then obviously you take some things out of the car to reduce the weight, and there you go, you got the new car. The next car is the Ford Puma ST, and I'm not interested in at all.
I'm not interested either.
No. Moving on, the Mercedes EQA, all electric new SUV. Obviously they made the EQV, I believe, or the other EQ one that's a bit bigger, but they've made a smaller one called the EQA, and I don't like it either.
No, just I can't get on board with that.
No. The thing is, Mercedes at the moment, they're just sort of going. I mean, they've had their good period, I think, and that was, you know, the SLS Black, the ones before that, you know, the CLKs and stuff. They've had that, you know, that they've had their sort of time to shine. Now they're just going all electric. Obviously, it's not entirely their choice because the world as we know it is going to shit. But they could have done a better job on the styling. I don't like it.
Everyone's in a weird transition, aren't they? And I think it's the performance manufacturers and the luxury manufacturers that are struggling the most. I mean, look at the face on that EQA. It just looks like a child that's about to cry. You know, that little second, the little small period of time in between when a child falls over and then they start. That's what it looks like. That. If you could see my face now, I'm doing the impression of it. But yeah, they're struggling with how to style cars. I think Mercedes and BMW, whether it's big grills, no grills, no exhausts.
I don't see the point in the big grille, because if everything's going to be electric, you don't need the air to come in and cool the engine, do you?
No.
So I don't know why the need for the big. You know, have a grille because it kind of makes the car look like it has a mouth, but you know it's not necessarily needed as a big item or a big part of the car.
I read somewhere actually with the BMWs especially, I think they're only doing the big grille because they're trying to break into the Chinese market, and the Chinese like big grills for some reason, and that's why. I'm sure that is true, to be honest. I think I read that somewhere. But yeah.
Next off we have the brand new Rolls-Royce Ghost, and it's had a facelift. It's got a 6.75 litre V12, finally a V12. And I mean, it looks rather lovely actually. I'm not really a big fan of Rolls-Royce usually, but the actual new face on that is actually, well, it's really nice. There's another way of putting it, but
it's a evolution rather than a revolution, isn't it? But it is nice, yeah. New Rolls-Royce Ghost. It's got like little boomerang sort of wrap around. What do you call them? Side lights. I think that's a little bit racy, actually, a little bit sporty for a Rolls Royce, but I think it does. It suits the car overall.
Definitely. It's not like the older sort of Rolls Royces kind of looked a bit, you know, older man, but that's kind of more contemporary looking, I think.
Well, yeah, Alan Sugar had one, didn't he? I don't think he'd go for some of the newer ones. So it's heading in the right direction. Very nice.
Another McLaren now. We have the McLaren Elva. And I'm not sure if this is a prototype or not. If it's actually releasing, I'm not sure. But it's got 804 brake. It kind of reminds me of the SLR Sterling Moss, like back from 10 years ago now. But obviously with the no roof, it looks actually really nice.
I'm not a fan of the design at all. But I suppose it's the price you pay, because this is the lightest McLaren ever. Yeah. Apparently. What else can I say on it? 804 bhp, 0 to 62 in under 3 seconds. Which is kind of standard, though, isn't it, for a track car? Yeah.
It's not like groundbreakingly different, but I mean the design, obviously, and the sort of lightness, then yes. But yeah, I mean, I think that looks quite nice. Obviously, I'd rather have a roof on it.
Well,
I
it
don't know
hasn't even got a windscreen, has it?
Yeah, you would have to probably wear a helmet. That's why I'm thinking, is it a prototype?
helmet?
Is that illegal on the road? Anyway, so this is a brand new company actually. It's called the Automobili Pininfarina, who actually designs Ferraris. So automatically, the first car they're going to make is going to look stunning, and it does. It's called the Battista, I think.
Yes.
I don't know how you say it, but it's got 1900 horsepower, 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. Apparently shares the same components as an Audi R8 and a Lamborghini Hurricane, which is quite interesting, and the same drivetrain as a Rimac Concept 2. I mean, it looks like a Rimac as well, and it's like a Rimac cross between the Ferrari SF90 is what they kind of made it look like. But I think that looks rather lovely.
I think it's amazing, and this is a proper example of the future, because it has 4 electric motors. The battery, as you say, is by Rimac. It's got more power than anything really. 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. 2,300 Newton meters of torque.
Wow.
Yeah, this is going to be a brilliant hypercar, and it looks the part as well.
It does. It's definitely, certainly, he's going to, knock off someone in the looks department. It actually costs €2 million, which is, I think, a bit more than the Rimac, I believe. But then again, it's like a Ferrari Rimac, pretty much.
Would you have one over a Lamborghini though? Looks wise, it doesn't. It's futuristic, but it doesn't have.
Yeah, it's futuristic, but it's lacking the aggressiveness that I look for in, like, say, a Lamborghini. It's very clean. Don't get me wrong. It's got a really nice. I'm sure it's designed for aerodynamics more so than looks,
all the features I'm reading here. Torque can be sent to wheels individually. Furiosa, Enosica, Pura driving modes. Pardon my Italian. So it's set up for technology, I suppose, more than outright fun, which is what you get with a Lamborghini. But yeah, I think it's great, and it's a sign of what's to come.
That's definitely one of few cars that I would potentially buy as an electric car.
The only problem is, though, it's named after a WWE wrestler who I think is about 50 now. That Batista, the wrestler.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm 21. You're 19. I might be showing my age a bit here.
I'm not. Obviously, don't follow wrestling, but
it's too high, to be honest. I just know who he is from primary school, but yeah, there we go.
Now, there's another car that I'd like to talk about, Matty, which I haven't obviously written down, but I just, it just came up. I actually saw one yesterday. It's the brand new Polestar 2. Now, obviously, they made the Polestar 1, which is that sort of saloon. It's almost like a Volvo, but the new one's made by Google. It doesn't look all that, but I mean, 70 grand. And I'll tell you a little story. So when I saw it yesterday, it's basically pulling into a petrol station. I was like, I'm sure that's electric. And then a woman got out of the car and she tried to put petrol in it. And then she realised it was electric, and then she went to the electric charging point, even though it's like one of the smallest petrol stations in the world. It had like one charging station, and she couldn't even figure out how to get the cable in there. And I'm just like, so why did you buy an electric car not knowing it's electric and knowing how to charge it?
I'm sorry, that has got to have been a courtesy car or a hire car or something. You don't forget that your own car's electric.
But if you look at the design, it looks similar. It's very Volvo looking.
Yes, it is.
And the sort of the rear of it has that Volvo lights. Well, they're kind of cross between Volvo and Audi.
I like them lights. They're coming back into fashion, actually. Them sort of lights are really, really cool. Nice design. Looks like this particular one, the Polestar 2, looks like a Volvo with a hunchback, but it still looks nice.
I think it looks quite nice. I don't love the back, but I mean the front is, it's very simplistic. It's also very modern, and it's very appealing. Well, let's move away from cars a little bit. Still car related, but transport's, a big part of the car news as well. So, Matty, would you like to tell me what happened to the petrol ban? I believe it's been moved, isn't it?
Well, it was. They've been toying with this for years. It was 2040, then 2035, and I think, as we're recording this week, it's just been confirmed that it's actually going to be moved to 2030. So
we've only got 10 years now.
we've got a lot to do. Manufacturers have got a lot to do, but I mean, not just manufacturers. We've got to build an infrastructure. I suppose. I mean, it's not like we're going to be going electric overnight.
No.
If my Saxo's still alive in 10 years, it won't get taken off me. But we've got to start moving fast, really.
And of course, like the actual making of these cars, they require a lot of electricity themselves to make, the batteries and all the electronics in there, and that's actually not exactly improving on, greenhouse gases and everything being polluted, because actually, to make one of the batteries, the lithium-ion batteries it's quite, heavily polluting the environment.
It's a real weird one, this, because I used to be dead against electric cars, and I still am in a way. I don't think it's the way forward. I think it is something like hydrogen or the fuel cell cars, but everything has implications on emissions and stuff. But
definitely
with electric cars, first of all, they're not very good. Most of them, even the really good ones, they still can't get as many miles out of them as. But also, all you're doing with electric cars, you're offsetting the emissions. Most of electricity, it comes from coal, and releasing greenhouse gases from the power stations rather than your exhaust system. So it's not the way forward, I don't think. But
I mean, the only reason electric cars are struggling a little bit, because obviously it's a very new thing. It's almost going to take a bit more time for them to do the research and how you can get the most out of the battery and the quickest way of charging it, etc. But just going back to the obviously moving it to 2030, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and buy 10 manual diesels in 2029 and then just store them to make sure that I'm not buying any electric cars. But because of course, like you said, they're not going to fully ban petrol cars. That's the banning of new petrol cars being sold. But all the old cars, like even like the cars we're talking about now, in 10 years' time, they'll be around still, even if they are, hybrid or petrol and electric and stuff. But even like old 60s cars, they're going to be there somewhat, but they'll just be so much more rare.
Yeah, there's going to be a massive black market for petrol cars. People, oh, have you got any petrol cars? Oh yeah, I can't get one anywhere. People are going to want them, but it's weird because people are buying more electric cars. I mean, it's happening.
They are.
Basically, what's happened is they've said, listen, the infrastructure is going to be electric cars. That's the way it's going. Mm-hmm. And people like you and me have got to go, oh, okay, fine, no problem. But people have started buying them because of that. But at the same time, and this is really weird because we're buying more electric cars. It's increasing every month. I mean, I look at the stats. Someone I subscribe to on YouTube puts what's sold and what's up and what's down. But in the used market, which I work in, the used car market, we're selling more diesels than ever. So it's quite a weird one, really.
But it's also like the car culture itself as well. there will still be the classic car clubs and the car culture we have at the moment, and that I think that will go on and carry on until at least every car that's being released is electric, and then somehow they'll have to think of another sort of car culture to do with electric cars, which is it could be there. But it's not as significant as a petrol, because there's a lot more uniqueness about that.
Yeah, we've got Formula E and things like that now, haven't we? Which
I don't personally watch Formula E. I mean, I watch a bit of Formula One, but then again, even that's been sort of changed to be all about rules, and all about safety, and none of the actual fun part.
Formula One's bad enough without no sound at all. But yeah, it's definitely. I think we're definitely going to end up adjusting to it a little bit better. But yeah,
it's a time thing, really, isn't it? It's just getting used to it.
Yeah, it definitely is, and already there's mechanics dismantling lithium batteries, finding out how to fix electric cars. Because if you think about it, the Mark 1 Nissan Leaf, it's probably getting on for about 12, 13 years old now, something like that.
Same with the Prius, the first Prius. That was a hybrid, obviously. It's petrol and electric.
First Prius is older than me and you.
But anyway, Matty, I'd like to move on to something that's a bit concerning, as also being the congestion charge zone is increased next year. They've announced this quite recently. Basically, the congestion charge at the moment is pretty much in central London, like the proper central, like Westminster, around that area. But yeah, so I'll bring up a map now. Obviously, the people on Spotify won't be able to see, but if you search yourself, you can see that there's a big increase it's like 4 times the size of the original congestion zone, and it's gone all the way out to like Twickenham area. And obviously, it's a bit concerning if you do drive a manual diesel or any other sort of petrol car that's within sort of 10 years old, because you do have to pay a considerable amount of money if you are travelling to and from London. I mean, I do that quite a bit anyway, but I mean, people in London will probably start using public transport more often. I think that's kind of the goal for them to cut down on the emissions. But that's that news.
Well, I had to do a bit of research on this because I live in the north, so I suspect that we'll probably get something like this in 100 years or so. But yeah, it's gone up to £15 a day to drive in London. They're extending it out. So I've had a look at this map, right? So if you worked in Fulham but you lived in Newham, would you have to pay that £15? Is that how it works? Because they're 2 places that it's extended to, I think.
If you're in the zone, then yes, because basically when you go into London, I'm not sure if you've ever been, Matty, but when you go through there's a sign saying this is the congestion zone. It starts here. Basically, there's a camera at the start and the end. So basically, when you go into it, they take your reg number, and when you go out of it, they take the reg number as well to make sure you've left. So you have to pay on that night, I think, and I think it doubles. So,
I mean, if that's true, that's going to be that is going to be really expensive for a lot of people. But as well, wasn't Sadiq Khan saying that he wants us to stop using public transport and drive if we can because I don't know, there's a pandemic on. Someone was saying
at the moment,
the government was. So you've asked us to drive our cars, then you've said emissions have gone up. Well, of course they've gone up, and now as a result you're putting the price up and then expanding it out. Well, they've proposed the new congestion zone anyway. I mean, this is not good news, is it?
No, I think it's just another way of saying I want more money, pay me now. But where's the money going? That's what I want to know. If the money's going to, a good cause, because I never see any improvement on the road except roadworks that take about a year to finish, a pothole, and more speed cameras, and nobody likes speed cameras. And that's actually a good point for the next point, actually. Obviously, speeding and speed cameras are, well, it's a really big thing now on the road. Like, you can't really go anywhere without, seeing a camera at least once. And
No.
the same with the new smart motorway system. Now, obviously, it's meant to be safer, but actually I think it's more dangerous because at the moment they've got no hard shoulder, and if someone breaks down on, let's say, the M4, there's nowhere for that car to even go, and therefore it's going to slow everyone down, and there's more traffic.
We did warn them, didn't we? I mean, everybody said, no, this is a terrible idea. I mean, how I see it is that they've, whereas in, like, I don't know, China or Germany, they just build an extra lane. What we've done is we've got an extra lane in the cheapest way possible, which is using the hard shoulder, which isn't a lane. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you?
No.
It's really just terrible. I mean, not only have you got to, when you're in the restricted zones and it says 50 miles an hour, you're so scared of getting flashed that you're going like that, looking up and down at your speedo when you're on the motorway, which isn't good. Your eyes aren't on the road the whole time, and 38 deaths as a result of smart motorways so far, and that's obviously people breaking down and getting hit, or breaking down and about to get out of their car. They tell you to climb over the fence and wait on some farmer's field. Yeah. So it's sit in your car or get launched at by a cow in a farmer's field while breaking your leg getting over the bloody central reservation.
Literally, yeah. I mean, talking of lanes, like the M25 has, at the most like 6 lanes. And even then, like, they still have the speed limit, the smart system, where if there's a sort of congestion, they slow the traffic down, so there's not like stop-start situation. But I mean, another reason that's annoying is because every time they get those I don't know what you call them, that go over the top of the motorway with the signs on it, and then they have the cameras like hidden in those things. And it's like every sort of half a mile they have that. It's really annoying. Okay, so that is pretty much the end of the podcast. We do hope you enjoyed this first podcast. There'll be a lot more podcasts come out sort of every month, talking about the latest car news and the transportation in the UK. And make sure you do check out Matty at Matty Cars. I'll leave a link in the description. But if you obviously listening on Spotify or something like that, then just search Matty Cars on YouTube. Have you got anything to say, Matty, to end off the episode?
Well, yeah, you can follow us both on the Instagram.
Oh yes.
There's a Matty's Cars Instagram, or there's me personal one if you just want to see pictures of me standing on scaffolding and things like that. And of course the Grand Teen Instagram. And if you want to send us any messages or anything like that, to get in touch with us about any of your thoughts or anything that you'd like to talk about, then go for that. Otherwise, subscribe to both of our channels.
Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.